Well, you might remember a few years ago, actually going on 7 years ago, we went through a process here at Unity of Auburn called Appreciative Inquiry, and we were trying to identify our core values and draft the mission statement that we share with you each week. And in order to do that, we interviewed 97 people. That's a huge percentage of our congregation, in the 90% range, which is really amazing in terms of getting cooperation from everyone to sit down and to be interviewed and to tell the story of what attracted them to Unity and Unity of Auburn, and also to identify the gifts that each person brings individually to this community and to the world at large. And as you might imagine, this was an interview process. The interviewers would take detailed notes as to what they were hearing when they heard the stories. This would generate a large volume of writing. We had something like 500 pages of your responses that our intrepid administrative assistant, Margie Spaulding, transcribed, so we could actually use software to get into the words and to identify phrases and trends and content so that we could really get to the main ideas that were coming up over and over again. And what we came up with was our mission statement and our core values. And by far, the one thing that was talked about most often was the message. Not just the Sunday message, but the overall message of our essential Unity teachings. There were like 79 comments about what we teach in the Unity movement. They were called things like positive, practical, open, and there was talk about the variety of classes and workshops, and especially how the message is making a difference in people's lives. You just heard that, by the way, a few minutes ago when Lynn Laney was sharing what it was about Unity that interested her in becoming a chaplain and how it made a difference in her life. We heard that same story, or similar stories, from other people about how what we do and teach here and in Unity at large helps people to deal with all sorts of different life challenges. Things like divorce, job loss, illness, death of a loved one. And our message helps to raise our outlook on life. That was one of the themes, that it instills a sense of hope, a sense of optimism. And the one word that appeared over and over again after the word message was the word positive. And that really came as no surprise, because when our national organization, Unity Worldwide Ministries, did a survey maybe a year or so before we did our process, the results were the same. Here's the top 5 answers from, what do I got up there? 4 answers. I can't count this morning. The survey results, the top 4 answers from Unity Worldwide Ministries about how to describe Unity. A positive path for spiritual living, a positive alternative to negative religion. We believe in being a positive example and role model. We believe in making a positive difference in the world. So, positive and also action. Making a difference in the world. It was as if people were finding Unity to be like an oasis in a desert land of negativity, or maybe like an antidote to a poison. And maybe that's really the better analogy here. Chronic negativity is like a slow-acting poison. And when people discovered a message that offered a more positive outlook on life and on human potential, they experienced a greater sense of well-being, like that poison was being removed from their system. So that's how we came up with our mission statement about being, about advancing a positive message to help people of all ages and all faiths thrive in a changing world. It came directly from the life experience of all of you. But, believe it or not, there are some people in the world who claim that a positive attitude is actually negative. And you might be wondering, who could possibly have anything negative to say about being positive? There's at least one. And she wrote an entire book on the subject. Her name is Barbara Ehrenreich. She wrote this book up here called Bright-Sided: How Positive Thinking is Undermining America. That's a pretty bold statement, isn't it? Her basic premise is that positive thinking leads to lack of vigilance and ultimately recklessness. So she blames positive thinking for getting us into the Iraq War, and positive thinking was the cause of our current world economic crisis. Actually, we're getting out of it now, but at the time we were in the thick of it. And when I first heard about the book and some of her ideas, my first reaction was to dismiss her as just another crackpot, or someone that I've heard referred to as a cave person. You know what a cave person is?
No.
Citizen against virtually everything. You know what I'm talking about, right? You go on Amazon and look up your very favorite uplifting and inspiring book, and you are always going to find some one-star reviews trashing it because there are just some people that have to do that. You name it, they're again it. Puppy dogs and kittens. They're not cute, they're noisy little mess-making machines. Flowers equal allergies. Sunsets are boring, you know. If a lot of people like something, there must be something wrong with it. Now that sounds like the definition of what we call today a hipster, right? If it's too popular, they don't like it. You know, it's just, you know, that kind of a thing. And well, you know, here's one of the things they say about negative people. I just love that negative attitude of yours. People must want to be around you 24/7, right? Isn't that the way it works? So, anyway, I was thinking about this book and reading some of the things she had written, and I decided to practice what I'm preaching and take a more, shall we say, positive attitude toward her, which I guess that might sound sort of passive-aggressive, right? Taking a positive attitude towards someone who's trashing positivity. Passive-aggressive, maybe. I can live with that. But what I found when I opened up a little bit to what was going on was I discovered that the foundation of her aversion to positive thinking started when she was diagnosed with breast cancer. Just like a lot of people who get that kind of diagnosis, she went through the different stages of grief, different emotions, you know, bargaining, fear, distress, anger, all of those things. And the message she started getting from some of her doctors and other cancer patients was that it was wrong to feel that way. It was wrong to have these negative feelings about this diagnosis and her disease situation. It was bad to feel bad, and it was even worse to acknowledge that she felt bad. Being asked to visualize smiley faces like you saw in the book, or cover it up in pink paint or whatever it is that people would encourage her to do. And it was sounding to me like she was another victim of something that we call metaphysical malpractice. Metaphysical malpractice is when we say things like, what was it in your consciousness that brought that illness, accident, investment loss, you fill in the blank. What was it in your consciousness that drew that to you? Blame the patient for their illness because they weren't thinking the right kind of thoughts. Gosh, imagine that. I mean, could you imagine that upsetting someone? Blame the person who happens to be in the way of the drunk driver who crosses the center line because, well, they must have harbored a secret fear of getting into a collision. Blame the soldier who's injured by an improvised explosive device because she was thinking warlike thoughts. I actually read that one on some New Age website someplace. Now, of course, I know there are times when what we are thinking or not thinking is directly responsible for our circumstances. There is a link between chronic anger and stress and things like heart disease and stroke. That's pretty well established. And yet, I've also known some angry, negative thinking, stressed out type A people who live to a ripe old age and die peacefully in their sleep. Anyone else? It happens. So how do we account for that? You know, sometimes there are situations where we're distracted. We're not paying attention. We make a mistake. something bad happens and it's our fault. It's kind of like this sign that someone posted on Facebook. It's hard to see, but it says, everything happens for a reason. Sometimes the reason is you're stupid and make bad decisions. Okay, that's a little bit negative. But I can relate to it, all right? I can cop to it. I'll own that. And many times it's someone else who makes a mistake, who's distracted, not paying attention, and we just happen to be in the vicinity of the vortex of their particular mistake. And of course, we can always blame it, always on just getting out of bed in the morning, right? If I just hadn't gotten out of bed, it's my fault, because if I hadn't gotten out of bed this morning, it never would have happened. It's all metaphysical malpractice. So the point here is that the author Barbara Ehrenreich has a point, up to a point, which is that positive thinking can become another label for unhealthy denial. Well-meaning people can use positive thinking as a way to stuff their feelings, or as a way of having to avoid dealing with their own discomfort, especially in the presence of another person who's experiencing pain or fear. You need to stop expressing fear. You're the one that needs to be more positive. You need to stop expressing your pain and your fear because I can't deal with it. Your pain, your fear makes me uncomfortable. That's how it works sometimes. We can use the concept of positive thinking as just a naive attempt to control and to manipulate the world and the people around us. And if I thought that's what we were teaching in Unity, you wouldn't see me standing up here. I'd have found something else to do with my life. Because that kind of thinking, to me, is just as damaging as the idea of a tyrant God who condemns people to eternal torture because they didn't get their theology right. The reason I'm a part of this movement is because our positive path, our positive message says that it's okay to feel your feelings, whatever they might happen to be. To feel them without guilt and without blame. Our positive message is that it's okay to be human. It's okay to be authentic. Whatever it might be, fear, pain, anger, anxiety, better to see it and to own it rather than pretend that it doesn't exist. Because when we do that, we end up creating just another variety of slow-acting poison. See it, acknowledge it, own it, experience it, and then manage it. Manage it. The things that we deny and we disown, they tend to go into hiding. We talk about the shadow, that's part of what that's all about. They tend to go into hiding and they cause problems behind the scenes, and nobody wants that. Our positive path doesn't say we deny our fear away. It says we feel the fear and do it anyway. Feel the fear, do it anyway. We feel the fear and then we take prudent steps for our own safety. And we move forward. I really don't think I want to be around someone who never experiences fear or negative feelings. First off, I might wonder if they're really human. But here's the other thing. Fearless people, I think, can be dangerous. Back when I was practicing law, I did a lot of personal injury trial work, and I represented a lot of injured construction workers. And I remember one case where a guy fell and sustained some pretty catastrophic injuries because he wasn't wearing his safety harness. And I remember one of the witnesses that I interviewed, he was a co-worker. And he told me that this guy, that he was absolutely shocked that this guy fell because he said, this guy, he had the reflexes of a cat. You should have seen him up there on the high steel. He was fearless. And then I remember he paused for a moment. And it was like this light went on. You could just literally see it. His eyes opened up a little bit, the light came on, and he said, I guess that's what got him into trouble. I Guess that's what got him into trouble. We need to make friends with our feelings, even the ones that we call negative. We make friends with them instead of covering them with smiley faces and pretending they don't exist. They're here for a reason, but the key is we have to master them. And that's one of the messages we get from Eric Butterworth in his wonderful and inspiring book, Discover the Power Within. He says, beyond the appearances revealed in the mirror is the total person you are in spirit. There is that of you that is greater than your weakness, stronger than your fears. He's not saying that weakness and fears aren't there. He's saying that there is that within you that is stronger than those things. So you have that and. That's what we mean by a positive path and a positive message. It's really the core of what we teach. The religion that I grew up with told me that human beings are fundamentally flawed. Anyone else get that message growing up? Human beings are fundamentally flawed. We're sinners. And everyone who wasn't part of that religion was going to spend eternity in some warm and cozy, fiery place. And we're here to tell the universe that it doesn't work that way. We're here to tell the world that it doesn't work that way. Children are not born in original sin. They're born in original perfection. Jesus didn't come to be worshipped or to be served up as a blood sacrifice to a Bronze Age war god. He came to show us how to live with courage and integrity and how to treat each other, how to get along. It's all about choices. And we believe that human beings have within them this capacity to learn to choose wisely, because much of what we label as evil in the world flows from our choices. And our positive message is that we can change that. But it takes work. The purpose of spiritual practice is to transform the world. Our positive message has to lead to action in the world if it's going to remain relevant and vital. So the best spiritual practices teach us how to be a little less self-centered, a little more other-centered. And it takes commitment. It takes a willingness to change. Dare I say it? Change our ways of thinking and being. That's why it's called a path. It leads someplace, but it's not a conveyor belt. You actually have to walk it in order to get there, and that takes a little bit of effort. And as you walk down the path, a funny thing happens. The familiar stuff starts getting left behind. And there are people who hear that and say, I got to leave behind the familiar? No thanks. I'm fine just the way I am. Just tell me what to do and think, and I'll be just fine, because I don't want that discomfort of having to leave that familiar stuff behind. Everyone wants to be transformed, and nobody really wants to change. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. So I'm going to bring things to a close here with another quote from Eric Butterworth, once again from his book, Discover the Power Within You, where he said this. He said, life is growth and unfoldment. There is a belief deeply rooted in the collective unconscious of the race that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You can't change human nature. Reject this for the great lie that it is. When you catch Jesus' concept of the divinity of man, you see that you not only can change human nature, but this is the whole object of the Christian teaching. Yet another excellent example of our positive message, which we can summarize in just 3 words. Let's get growing. See you next week.